Hello, everybody. It is I, Carolina J, and we have a new setup. Fingers crossed, the video will look a lot better, it will sound a lot better, and you never know it. Hopefully, from now, we actually have better videos. Just got to get the content right now. Today's video, we're going to have a look at my books that I read between November and December. I was quite surprised. I actually managed to read so many. Well, I say so many. For most people, it won't be very many, but for me, it was. And I want to do a review for them, but I have got to the point where I'm not managing to do them already. There's so many things that I'm trying to do, and my brain and my body just don't allow me to do it in the way that I want to. So what we're going to do is do a review on here for November and December, and if I can, I will write up a review as well to go on to my new website, which I'm still trying to set up, and until I reach a certain point I can't actually release it for people to have a look at. So please bear with me. I am trying. I've had an ME crash the last few days, which means that I then can't really function. I have to limit myself to the essential jobs, like looking after the children, making sure they have food, taking the dog for a walk, that kind of thing. And then I have to keep resting. It's really frustrating, but that's life with ME, unfortunately. I pushed myself a bit too hard. I built myself a new unit, which is absolutely amazing. It's working really, really well. And unfortunately, my body then said, no, you did too much. The website and the reviews are being put on hold again just while I try to recover. So therefore, I'm going to do the reviews for the November, December books on here, on a video, which a lot of people do anyway, so that's what gave me the idea of doing one. So let's have a look at the books that I managed to read. There are 6 altogether, which for me, bearing in mind that I hadn't been able to read anything up until this point, has been really good, so I'm really pleased. The first book that we're going to review is Line of Duty, The Real Story, by Wensley Clarkson. I understand that there is a Line of Duty TV show. I haven't seen that. This book is all about corruption within the police force. Going back a really long time, he starts off really early on, talking about what it was like during the schools during the war, right up until what was present day when he wrote the book. I have to say it was a very interesting read. I found it sometimes a little bit clunky, I suppose, not smooth flowing to read all the way through. It took me a huge amount of time. I would say I read this over a span of about 6 months originally, because that's where my cognition wasn't working. The final sort of half of the book is when I then managed to start reading again, and I was able to pick it up much quicker. Whether or not I understood all of it, I can't promise you, but I definitely understood a decent amount of it. It's very interesting. He has lots and lots of different perspectives from lots of different police officers and criminals, in fact, as well, that have been willing to talk to him, some of them with anonymity and some of them without. It is definitely enlightening. By clunky, I mean if I was reading a normal novel, it would flow all the way through, but I think because this was a factual book and the way that it needed to be written, it was very hard to not make it clunky. He's made it flowing as much as possible, but I did find it just that little bit clunky. It's the only word I could think of. But I definitely found it really interesting. The reason I'm reading this is, again, it's research into what I want for my book. There are lots of aspects. You'll find that I'm researching lots of different books, and you're not going to know why I want to research them. I mean, you might be able to figure out some things or guess some things because of the book that I'm reading. But at the same time, I'm hoping that I'm not going to give you anything away from what it's there for. So I found this really interesting anyway. Definitely worth reading. People give them stars, don't they? I was going to do it out of 10, but I've realised that most people seem to do them out of 5. I think I was going to give this... I'm going to give it... a 3.5, 4. I'm trying to think if I want to give it a 3.5 or a 4. It's been a while since I read it now. I have to try to remember. I think I'm going to give this a 4 because it had very interesting content. He's obviously had to find all of this data, speak to all of these different people, get them willing to discuss all of this different criminal activity. It must be quite a dangerous job to do that. So I'm quite in awe of that. But for me, I think it was a 4 just purely because of how it was that little bit clunky for me. But it was definitely worth reading. So I'm trying to give an honest review of how I feel. Somebody else may really enjoy the book much more than what I have done. I also really struggled with it. And so again, I may be lowering it down just purely because of my own cognition issues and how long it then took me to read it. And I didn't want to reread it from the beginning as my cognition was getting better. But I think what I will do is pick this book up again later on when I need to, and then I can reread it, and I should think more of it will go in, be a little bit easier to read. The next one is a little bit of a controversial book for me because it is kind of a true story. So the book is this one, Points of Origin by John L. Orr. Now, whether or not you know about this story, I don't know, but I've always found this extremely fascinating. And it is so not the book, let's go with John Orr. He was a very well-respected investigator for the Glendale Fire Department. I'm just having to read it off the back here for a moment because I can't remember. He arrested or apprehended 400 individuals, and over 40 of those were serial arsonists and involved in arson crimes. So, he was a very, very well-respected person. However, it turned out that he was actually a serial arsonist and had set fire to, I think it was something along the line, or it was maybe in the thousands of fires. And then he would go and turn up to these fires and put them out, and then find out how it had been, how it originated. But obviously he knew how it originated because he was the one that set the fire. So that part of it is true. And then what is really confusing is he wrote this book whilst he was still an investigator. And when he was arrested, they found it. It was either before he was arrested or whilst he was under suspicion, and they then took this book, and everybody that was involved was reading it and going, but all of these events happened, and it was like it was a factual book based on what his life was and all of these different fires that had happened, but they were in this fictional book. And then the way that he was writing it, it really made it feel like he was the person that had set fire to everything. And they even used it in his court case, and it was partly what allowed him to be put into prison. And I believe he's still in prison now and isn't being released. So it is really it's really interesting. One of the controversies for me is I do not like buying books from people who are known criminals and are currently in prison. However, I really needed this for my book, and there is a particular part that I'm really interested in. So I had to purchase it because it's not really a book that's particularly well known, so I couldn't get a second-hand copy, and so I had to purchase it, which was a little bit frustrating for me. So that is a problem. There were a few issues for me with the book. One, it contains a lot of explicit content, and I do not do explicit content at all. I nearly didn't finish the book because of it. It was very difficult for me. I had to try to skim past, and the only reason I kept going is because I wanted to have it for this research. So I would have DNF'd it very quickly based on that. There's quite a bit that it's just not necessary, and I found it very frustrating. The first half of the book I found a real challenge. So again, I had tried to read this previously and not got very far, maybe a couple of chapters. Then I managed to finish reading the book, continue reading this one, the Line of Duty book, and then I managed to pick this one back up, and I started it back from the beginning again because I hadn't read it that far, and I was able to read a line, a sentence. Then I would have to reread that sentence. Then I would read a paragraph, and then I'd have to reread the paragraph, and sometimes I'd read them several times over. And then gradually it was taking me days just to read a half of a page. Then gradually I would read a little bit more, and then it just started to click a little bit more. But for the first 17, 18 chapters, I found it really challenging, but I don't quite think that was just because of my cognition. I actually think that the writing wasn't as good in the first half as it was in the second, which I found quite interesting. I think it's because he found more of a flow, and it also felt like it just needed a little bit more editing in the first half than in the second half. Maybe the second half had been worked a bit more. I'm not sure. I'd be really interested to hear what other people's opinions are if anybody else tries to read it or decides to read it. I think in the end I would give this about a 3. Partly I would downgrade it because I wouldn't buy it normally, but I have purely because of this. So I don't like enabling criminals, shall we say. It is also because of the explicit content. That would be, you would lose a good percentage for me just purely because of that. I don't feel that it's necessary because of the clunkiness. Again, it's not clunky in the same way. I just felt like it needed a bit more editing to what it had. Points of origin, I'm going to give a 3. Definitely read up about the case. It's really, really fascinating. And I believe his daughter and another person have just released a book jointly. I am quite interested in that because it's a different perspective. It's the perspective of his daughter, who I don't believe has any contact with him anymore. So it'd be quite interesting to see from that side. But anyway, that's the review of this one. Next is Agatha Christie's Hickory Dickory Dock. I always enjoyed watching Poirot and David Suchet's version, and I really wanted to see what all the fuss is about with Agatha Christie, because there's always been... Everybody always says that Agatha Christie's books are amazing and still one of the main top sellers of books. This is the 125th anniversary book as well. Wow, it's quite amazing. I did like it. I didn't figure out who the criminals were, which I expected with an Agatha Christie. I thought there would be enough twists and turns in there for me not to figure it out, so I did like that. I don't like to be able to just guess who it was. It puts me off. I was a little bit concerned about the manner of the language, but bearing in mind that the book is from its time, is it 20s or is it later? I'm not actually 100% sure. Let me just see. Oh no, first published in 55 in Great Britain. So there are tones of racism. There's not too much in there. I have read worse, but I feel that everybody has a place in society as an equal. So it's a little bit challenging when you read something and you're like, that's a little bit close to the mark there. Obviously, we still accept these books, but we need to accept them for how they were written and what society was at the time, as opposed to what it should be today. So I did find that a little bit challenging for me. So I think I'm going to give this a 4. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I thought I was just going to demolish the book and really enjoy it because I love Poirot. But I didn't. So I was a bit surprised. But it may have been these slight undertones that put me off a little. But also, again, at this point, my cognition is still quite low. So it could have been actually because of the cognition difficulties and trying to take on board what was being said and understand. But yeah, so I think I just said I'm going to give it a 4. I don't actually know what I said. I think a 4. I think a 4 is fair. So yeah, Hickory Dickory Dock. Next up is this one, The Last Place You Look by Kristen Lepionka. This I had on my bookshelf, and I had finished reading the Agatha Christie book, and I'm just like, oh, what do I read now? I've run out of books again. Well, I mean, I never run out of books. I was going to say I have way too many. I do not have way too many books. People will disagree with that, but I have books. And this one was on my shelf. I'd obviously picked it up at some point. I have no idea where I got it from, and it was just on my shelf. So I thought, let's have a little look at this one. And this kept me, honestly, by this point, my cognition was starting to kick in, and I was starting to be able to read books. And I demolished this in 2 days, and I have no idea how. I mean, I literally sat there just reading, but it would be several pages, and then I'd have to stop, then I'd have to get up, go and do something, and then obviously look after the children and do different things. Then I'd come back, and then I'd read a little bit more, and I would just read a few pages. But then as I was managing to read more, I was able to read a whole chapter, which was just, wow, I can actually read again. What's going on? So I carried on, and I managed to demolish the whole book in 2 days, which it always has one of those. I have a love-hate relationship with when I do that, because I'm like, yes, this book is so good, I have to keep reading it. And then I'm like, no, the book is finished. And I'm just like, no, now what am I meant to do? So it's, very frustrating. Anyway, I have to say, I really enjoyed this, to the point where I want to read more of Kristin Pionica's work. There are more of this series, which I don't have yet, so I will aim to get some more to carry on. It is a series, and I believe this is the first one. I found, again, it did have more romance and swearing. There's a lot of swearing in this. However, I have a lot of swearing. I had more by a lot of swearing. You guys probably won't think it's a lot of swearing. I don't swear at all. I don't allow swearing in my house. I just cannot stand it at all. So when I read swearing in a book, I find it really challenging. But I think I felt that it was tolerable because of the way that Kristin had written it, that you felt that it was necessary for that character in that place. Again, I didn't figure out who it was. Or did I? I think I figured it out. No, I figured it out exactly when Kristin wanted us to figure it out. So technically I hadn't sorted it. I hadn't figured it out earlier. So I was really chuffed about that, because I got it as she was almost telling us. So it was, I'm just trying to think how to explain that. I was happy that I didn't have to have it almost spelt out for me, but at the same time that I didn't guess it too early, if that makes sense. I found it a really interesting story. I liked the character building. The main character, I've forgotten the name because it's been a while since I read. Roxanne. I really liked the Roxanne character. She felt like a real person. Yeah, she felt like a real person, and I really enjoyed that. So I was going to give this, I think I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, because although it did have a few negatives for me, they were outweighed by all of the positives. And the fact that I demolished it in 2 days really says to me that I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm going to give it that. I thought you were going to say hello to everybody. Cooper's underneath my feet and doesn't want me to pick him up. Well, you do want me to pick you up. Well, waggle your tail and come here. Hey, it's Cooper Show. Hi. It's the Cooper Show. And look, his ears are starting to grow back. Go say hi to everybody. Cooper doesn't bark. He doesn't really talk very much, do you? Sometimes you make little whiny noises, which is really funny. Can you not put your nose in my face? Hi. I'm meant to be doing a book review, but we're doing a Cooper review instead. Cooper gets a 10 out of 10. Except when he's grumpy. Are you sitting on my knee? Hold on. Let me just lift you up a bit. Oh, right down the bottom of the camera. Is it? Oh, we need cuddles. Is that what you need, a cuddle? Okay, right. Well, let's try and do this with Cooper on my knee. So the next one is Ruth Rendell's The Best Man to Die. I was again, this is a book that I just had on my shelf, and I thought, oh, what do I read next? So I thought, oh, well, let me have a look at this. Obviously, Ruth Rendell has been a really good author for a long time. You're going to have to get down because you're too heavy. Oh, and I'm now covered in dog fur. That's nice. Sorry. Yeah. So, sorry, the Cooper took over again. So I'd never read a Ruth Rendell book, so I thought, well, let's give that one a go. And I have to say, that's 5 out of 5 straight away. I absolutely loved her style. I loved the language that she used. There were many words in there that I didn't understand, and I need to go back and have a look and try to expand my vocabulary. There will be words that I did know, but I have forgotten because of this whole cognition issue. So, but the whole style, the way that it was written, the Inspector Wexford, I really liked his character, and some of the other characters that were in the book as well. I liked how they were portrayed and the way that she depicted the differences in the class of people as well. I thought that was really interesting. And so much so that I have actually asked my neighbour to see if he can pick up as many of the collection as possible from this secondhand bookshop that we have access to in town. But because I don't go anywhere, he goes into town all the time, so he's going to pick up and see what he can find, and he has found me some, and that's why I've got it added to both. I can't point. It's so weird pointing backwards to that. But anyway, both piles I've got in both of my challenges. I have a Ruth Rendell book in there, so yeah, we've got Barbara. Actually, I think I've got 3? Yeah, I've got 3 because I have one in the first one, and then I've got Barbara Vine, which is Ruth Rendell, and then I've got another Ruth Rendell. So yeah, I've got several to read. So yeah, definitely 5 out of 5. I really thoroughly enjoyed it to the point where I want to read the entire collection. So win for me. The last one that I read, I had read quite a few what I found were challenging books, and it was then Christmas and I was getting quite tired, but I still wanted to read something. So I managed to find this one in the local shop that sells books for charity just for 50p. So I found this one and I thought this would just be ideal for the kind of reading that I want to do. I would give this probably a 3 out of 5. It's easier to read. I did find quite a few editorial errors all the way through, and that really put me off. There was also another thing that really put me off, and it's very interesting to me in a very bizarre way. So Emily Bell writes about all of these different factual places and locations or events, different things that have happened within the book to help give it a sense of belonging, I suppose, that you know exactly where they are and that it's true and that you're set within that time. However, I found it really grating, and I didn't mean to, but it was just like, oh, like you're dropping in another thing, and you're dropping in another one, and you're popping in another one. And I found it really frustrating and grating on me. But the reason I found it really interesting is because actually I do that in my own novel. So I'm like, oh, that's what it's like from the reader's perspective. Whereas I've put them in mine because I want my book, although it's a work of fiction, I want the reader to feel like it's happening and you're actually in those locations, which is possibly what Emily was doing as well. So I'm going to be much more careful with what I am saying and how I'm doing it. So it's been a really good lesson for me to read this book and to hear it. inside of another novel, so I'm going to take that on board seriously and see what I can come up with. As for the story, I figured out very quickly it would be along the lines of kind of like a Mills and Boon kind of book for us here, or what I would class as like a Hallmark film. You know what's going to happen, but you want to watch it anyway, or you want to read it anyway, because it's just nice and palatable, nice and easy on the brain, and it's enjoyable. So it did what I needed it to do. It allowed me to read, and it allowed me to read in a less stressful, I can't get the words out what I'm trying to say. So it's basically it's not making my brain work as hard as what some of the other books would have done. However, that's not knocking the book. I've actually seen a video of Marky again today. I'm going to do a video on that actually, and Marky is this YouTuber who deals with different dramas that are happening over social media, and he does it in a really interesting way where he explains it from all the different angles that he can find, all the different viewpoints. The one I was watching today was specifying how a particular person was telling people not to give books good reviews if they haven't been written very well, and it did kind of include this kind of a book, but it's not, for me, it is about every book has its own purpose. So this book was perfect for how my brain was at that point when I took it on, and I really needed to read a book like this. There was no point in me trying to read another Agatha Christie or another Wexford, because the language in it was too hard for my brain to take on board and understand. Now, you can have somebody who may have been at work all day and is totally exhausted and doesn't want to sit and read something that's really challenging, but they do want to read. So, something like this is ideal. It's giving you enough, it's making your brain work, but it's not overstretched and working too hard. These were the books that I read. So let's just go back through once more. We had Line of Duty by Wensley Clarkson. I've got nowhere to put them. Points of Origin by John L. Orr. Agatha Christie, Hickory Dickory Dock. The Last Place You Look by Kristen Lepionka. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Ruth Rendell's The Best Man to Die. This Year's For Me and You by Emily Bell. I really enjoyed reading all of those. I was very surprised I actually managed to do all of them. And if I can, I will still try to write a review. If you want me to say my reviews in a slightly different way, I've heard several different ones. So, for example, I haven't really told you very much about what's going on in the story, but if you want me to tell you more about the story, then let me know. I'm just really concerned about giving it away and doing it incorrectly, especially while my cognition is still so low. Whereas with written reviews, the aim for me is to have the written reviews where I'll be able to write about them, take the time to go back over, edit what I'm trying to say, and if I make mistakes it doesn't matter, and I can try to be more careful about not giving away details. So the idea is that there would be this video review, but then there would be a written review which would be in much more detail. However, I'm just struggling to get to that first point, so I'm hoping to do it for these ones over here. As you can see, I put them in the wrong order. The Death by Chocolate, Catabasis, and the book I'm currently reading, which is The Spy Who Loved. Let me know what you think about the reviews, if you want me to do them differently, and have you read any of these? What were your thoughts on them? Have you got anything that you want to say or to add about those particular ones? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you all for the next video. Take care. Bye bye. Thanks for watching.